They're gonna put you all back in chains.
All right, y'all. Good morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you're tuning in. I'm grateful to have you here. And we got Jim Crow Joe back in the building. And that's really all any intro needs to inform an audience on what lies ahead or falls if you're Joe on a bike. But should be a fun one. Let's get it popping.
Are you going to apologize like Cory Booker
Apologize
has called
for what?
Cory Booker's called for it.
Cory should apologize. He knows better. There's not a racist bone in my body. I've been involved in civil rights my whole career. The blinders have been taken off. They've all of a sudden seen a hell of a lot clearer. They've seen, geez, the reason I was able to stay sequestered in my home is because some black woman was able to stack the grocery shelf.
When may I expect dinner, Bueller?
Who are you talking about, Kamala? Is she keeping the shelves stocked?
Some black woman was able to stack the grocery shelf.
When may I expect dinner, Bueller?
Presently, Mr. Herrick. Presently.
What would the noontime be without the classic Leave It to Beulah? Beulah, who's always in the kitchen.
But never seems to know what's cooking.
You cannot go to a 7-Eleven or a Dunkin' Donuts unless you have a slight Indian accent. I'm not joking.
We are from India. Oh, great. That's wonderful.
The world is different. There's too much unfinished business for us to just look backwards. We have to look to the future.
I know Joe. We know Joe. But most importantly, Joe knows us.
That's right.
And by the way, you know, I see.
Hold on, this one's golden. I've seen this one right here. Barack Obama, in quote, he said, never underestimate Joe's ability to screw things up. If he can say that about his own man and now president, oh my goodness, that should sum it up for you right there.
And to get hot, I got hairy legs that turn blonde in the sun. And the kids used to come up and reach in the pool and rub my leg down so it was straight, and then watch the hair come back up again. They'd look at it. So I learned about roaches. I learned about kids jumping on my lap. And I love kids jumping on my lap.
Even call centers, which rushed overseas in the hundreds of thousands. How many times you get the call? I'd like to talk to you about your credit card. Poor kids are just as bright and just as talented as white kids.
They're going to put you all back in chains.
In my opinion, we don't need white people leading the Democratic Party right now. The Democratic Party is diverse, and it should be reflected as so in our leadership.
But I tell you, if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, then you ain't black.
I'm Joe Biden, an old white politician, and you ain't black if you vote for the other white guy that actually cares. That would be Donald Trump or anybody that goes up against Biden nowadays. But it's funny how Biden can say these off-the-wall statements, but if you hear Trump saying anything of the sorts, anything of them, he's the racist. It's just, you know, the double standard is real, don't you think? Isn't it about time that after 50 plus years going on now that Grandpa Biden, he owns up to what he says? It's half a century, Joe, half a century full of lies and openly racist remarks. We need some accountability, but I'm putting this in front of my audience so you guys can wake up and see how Joe actually approaches race relations, how he actually sees people based on their pigmentation and how he portrays these false accents, or they may be sort of accurate, but it's wrong. And I'm not offended personally. I miss the days where we could actually say things and people not get offended. But since we're going along with the climate and how it is nowadays, let's at least keep that same standard, that same for things for Joe Biden as we do for Trump and anybody else that's in the media. Look, come on now.
Why does this happen? I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do this because let me just be really clear. Vice President Biden absolutely has a respect level for all people around him, for voters across this country, young people, older voters, voters of color, Black people, Latino voters, Indigenous, Asian American, Pacific Islander. So I'm not going to even traffic in any hypothetical conversation about if he is sensitive enough. In my opinion, we don't need white people leading the Democratic Party right now.
Joe Biden is under fire this evening on comments he made about working alongside segregationist senators in the past.
Biden recalling his early Senate career, bringing up two segregationist senators, Herman Talmadge and James Eastland, who called African Americans an inferior race. I was in a caucus with James O. Eastland, Biden said. He never called me boy. He always called called me son. At least there was some civility. We got things done. We didn't agree on much of anything. We got things done.
I think the two-party system, although my Democratic colleagues don't like me saying this, I think the two-party system is good for the South and good for the Negro, good for the black in the South. Other than the fact that they still call me boy, I think they've changed their mind a little bit.
And by the way, what you all know, but most people
I didn't know
don't
about that one.
Unlike the African-American community, with notable exceptions, the Latino community is an incredibly diverse community.
It's that old school white male.
What? Oh, Lord. Good night. I had to put the pinky up on him.
They're going to put you all back in chains.
And people say that Trump wasn't sensitive and that he talked off the wall and crazy, but he really said, put y'all back in chains, referring to black people. Come on now. He screws it up time and time again. How much are we going to give him a pass? How much are we going to allow it? And I'm a Christian man. I know I'm not supposed to judge. And I love my neighbor. I'm still going to pray for him because I know God puts all these people in office and puts them in power, whether you disagree or not. Like, all things happen for a reason. But at what point do you have to call things out? When you see nonsense and when you see blatant racism like this, like actually racist, you know what I'm saying? At what point do you call it out? You have to stand firm and you got to own up to these things, man. And he doesn't own up to them. He just passes the torch, passes the buck. This person on the Republican side and the conservative side, the right, whatever you want to label it as, is racist. But he's not. Come on now. I know nobody's perfect, but come on.
What kind of a chance would a northeastern liberal like Joe Biden stand in the South if you were running in Democratic primaries against Southerners like Mark Warner and John Edwards?
Old.
Better than anybody else. And you don't know my state. My state was a slave state. My state is a border state. My state is the 8th largest black population in the country. My state is anything from a northeast liberal state. It's that old school white male.
Choosing Joe to be my vice president was one of the best decisions I ever made.
Not the first sort of mainstream African American who was articulate and bright and clean and a nice looking guy. I mean, that's a storybook, man.
My son is Attorney General, a year in Iraq, came back, and that's one of the things that he finds was most in need. When he was over there in Iraq for a year, people would come to him and talk about what was happening to them at home in terms of foreclosures, in terms of bad loans that were these Shylocks who took advantage of these women and men.
Back from Mumbai to go meet with President Xi in China, I stopped in Singapore to meet with a guy named Lee Kuan Yew, who most foreign policy experts around the world say is the wisest man in the Orient.
I'm not a racist bone in my
Joe,
body. But I tell you, if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, and you ain't black.
Hey, man. It speaks for itself. I'm in shock. I'm just in shell shock. I don't know what else to say to what we just witnessed. I really don't, man. I really don't. Just think that these comments right here, these are made in the public. So you can imagine what goes on behind closed doors when the cameras are off in private locker room talk, as it's often referred to as. You pull up Trump stuff where he said, the grabber, and he's not perfect, but this right here, this is said in the public. So can you imagine what Joe says to his fellow peers and people closest to him? Can you imagine? Just think about it and ponder on it for a second. If you don't call that racist, then what is it? You want to stop racism, stop talking about it. But if you're going to talk about it, at least be honest about what is and what isn't. And I think I also remember Biden saying something along the lines of he didn't want his kids growing up in a racial jungle in regards to desegregation. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but my goodness, I hadn't seen at least half of those right there. 50 years, half a century of things like this with no positive changes with any sort of policies, anything in regards to politics whatsoever. Keeps giving you these open-ended promises, but keeps getting elected in. And what is going on? Father, I don't know why in the great Jehoshaphat you allowed this dude, Joe Biden, Grandpa Brandon, whatever other name you want to give him. I don't know why you allowed him out of all men you've ever created to become our president. But I know in all things, you work together everything for those who love you and for those that are called according to your purpose. I know you work it all together for the greater good. And although we might not be able to fathom why this is happening right now, all the chaos and confusion and racism and double standards that we see in society today, I know we might not be able to put that into context, but I know you're going to work it all out however you best see fit. And I'm here for it. All we can do is keep praying for clarity and comfort through these wild times, y'all. That's all I got to add to it. But hey, I give my 2 cents or 1 cent or whatever you deem my opinion as. I give it all day long, but I want to hear what you got to say. Let's keep this conversation rolling. Remember, we can have a difference in opinion and still be respectful, still be civil. That's the beautiful thing about freedom of speech. We're entitled to our own opinion. God gave us free will, so share your thoughts down below in my comment section. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you can stay up to date on all future videos I post. Share this video just to spread awareness to people that don't know how Joe Biden really has been throughout the years, throughout the half a century that he's been involved in politics, openly in the media saying these things. So whether you agree or disagree with my take on this video, share it. And if you want to support my channel, you like the content that I bring to the table, you can always buy me a coffee, donate on PayPal. You could hit the thanks button down below, has a little heart next to it. Join the Patreon family. You don't got to do any of that stuff at all, just showing up. I appreciate the viewership, the support, whatever we've developed, hate-wise, whatever it may be, since I've been on your screen. I'm grateful to have you here. Also, don't forget to check out my wife's Etsy store. That's linked down below, as well as my merch as well. That's called Gibby Gear. All that stuff can be found in my description section. But until next time, I love y'all. I'm praying for you. Godspeed. I'm gone.